Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Move Forward Anyway podcast, featuring dream accelerating inspiration. I'm Jeff Meyer, your host, author, entrepreneur, and coach. My goal with this podcast is to help you identify and clarify your own dream by taking wisdom from others' successes and challenges. If you're looking to take action on your dream, to make a difference doing something you love, but your fears are holding you back, then this podcast is for you. If you're interested in finding additional support, you can also check out my Dream Accelerator coaching program designed to help realize your full potential and reshape your future. As always, you can learn more about my Dream Accelerator program at jeffmeyer.org. Using my Dream Accelerating formula, heart-centered entrepreneurs can focus on their dream, name their fears, change their mindset, define their next, and move forward anyway. Well, welcome back, fellow successful dreamers. We are excited to have you join us again today on the podcast, Move Forward Anyway. Thanks for being here and taking the time to listen in on two friends having a conversation. I am so excited to have Debbie Tyke with me from Indiana today. Debbie, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Well, Jeff said I could do whatever I wanted, and I'm going to say, first of all, I am a friend of Jeff Meyer's. How's that?
There we go.
and really, I might be a friend of Amy Meyer's, and then I met Jeff. I'm not really sure. So. Yes. So we've been friends for a while, and then in conversation with Amy, we got to talking about this podcast. And so that's kind of how we're connected today. And I'm really glad to be here and really appreciate you as a friend and as a thinking, a really thoughtful, bright man of God, and I appreciate both of you for that. And so I'm really happy to be here today, even though I don't have a lot of experience on the podcasting. I think because you're my friend, it's making me, hopefully I'm a little more relaxed. I mean, audience, I feel like when I listen to myself, it's kind of squealy and I go fast. So I'm going to try to.
You have so much passion. You have so much compassion and energy for what you're doing. I am so grateful to hear your voice and to see you again. It's been too long since Mark and Debbie and Jeff and Amy got together. So I appreciate the work you've been doing. Why don't you share a little bit about the genesis or the spark that led you to this art of invitation that you are up to and been up to for a number of years.
Yes.
Where did it start? How did it begin?
Well, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training, and I'm also married to a minister, a pastor. And so, I have the intersection probably of my training and my life experience in that. And I grew up in the church. I feel like I've had this rich history of a lot of relationships. I kind of feel like I can make friends with almost anyone. I don't know if that's true. There's maybe those of you that are out there listening to say that's not true, but I feel like it is. And so my husband and I were having a conversation on the screened-in porch. One day we have a screened-in porch. We were just sitting there. And I said, I feel like I know something about relationships. I was running a support group at that time for single parents. It was a very kind of hard group at that time. I think in the church there are not a lot of support groups for single parents. Over the course of the time, I believe it touched about 100 families. I mean, that's pretty significant. I'm a student, and so at the end of my time, I kind of went back just to see what I kind of looked at the data. What was the impact of this ministry? I kind of wanted to know just for myself. Really, what was the impact? And I believe there was like 100 families that were affected. And even today, because that's been a long time, those particular individuals and their families, I run into them, and that ministry itself had a significance. And so there was something about that. There was something about the trust and the safety that I felt like I kind of knew, but I wasn't sure. Well, at the same time, Mark said, why don't you talk to this guy who was doing some work with a seminary? He said, why don't you talk to him about your idea? So we were at a church conference and we were in line, and he said, can you write your thoughts down? And I tell you, I thought, oh, not really. I mean, that's like chasing the wind. I thought, write my thoughts down. You want me to write my thoughts down? And but I just felt like there was a challenge there. There was kind of my term invitation there. And so I went home and I concentrated on that, and I sent off my thoughts, and he then sent them to the seminary president at that time, who was overseeing his project at a it's a male seminary, and I think it's not often that they might have female contributors to the work. And so the weird thing is, like, I got an email back that said, we're moving forward, like he wants to do a pilot project on this paper. And I was beside myself. So the genesis came from a conversation. It was something I had in my head. It came from the fruit of my life experience and my work, and an observation, and just a question. What is it that I think I know? Is it something that I can capture? Is it something that I can share? Is it reproducible? And so that's really where it started from. It was a searching, it was just a question. And then when there was a validation of the basics of the idea, it was just a very small synopsis of the ideas. When there was a validation from a seminary president saying, I'd like for this to be developed a little bit, that was kind of the invitation for me to dig in deeper. And then it kind of went from there.
Dreams often start with a recognition of, or a question, like you said, what can I add? What do I know about that would have an opportunity to be reproducible? There's also, in working with dreamers, entrepreneurs, there's a sense of, there's a gap, there's something missing. Mm-hmm. And I know what I have, what I'm thinking about fills mm-hmm. a gap. It builds a bridge. Mm-hmm. It solves a problem.
Yes.
So what is the problem that the art of invitation solves?
So let's go back to those early stages. Like, where was the connection there? Because in the early stages, what I found was a ministry to a single parent population was rare and hard to do, because in many ways that group of people were outsiders to the culture. I mean, what a lot of church people don't realize is that church caters to married people and couples and families, and so many single people survey the landscape and they see these families intact, going up to communion, sitting together, and they're just like, well, I feel odd because we live in a society of couples. And so I felt like there was this missing piece of helping outsiders feel like insiders within church culture. And that was really the genesis, the problem in the initial stages that I wanted to try to solve. And I did a study with a man of our church, helped me do this study. And I interviewed 10 potential outsiders about why it was that they, or not why did you feel like an outsider, how did they feel in relation to the church? And the outsider feeling was captured by that the church often caters to those people who are self-initiating. And that if you're a self-initiator and you're willing to stay connected and involved and learn insider culture, then you're probably going to find a fit. But if you are not self-initiating, you have some burden. I mean, it could be grief. There are so many people that were insiders for a long time, and then they have some tragic life event, you know this well, and then all of a sudden they feel outside. I've done church retreats with church leaders, and it's really interesting because I'll ask the staff, so how many of you, you're all insiders, you're on staff, how many of you here have felt like an outsider at some time here? And 100% of the people raise their hands, because an insider-outsider feeling is natural and normal. We all have it. We all feel like an outsider at times. We all feel like an insider at times. We want to feel this sense of belonging, connection, and mattering. And when we don't have this sense of belonging, connection, and mattering, then that's something within us. So the art of invitation will help a person with self-awareness to figure out, what is that going on inside of me that creates this barrier with another person? But it could also be something within the environment. Because if the environment does not create the vehicle or the acceptance for the outsider to have kind of a equal status, so to speak, it's not that we are all equal, right? So we're not uniform, like we all have to be the same, but unity is the goal, that we can all fit, that we all have a place, that at the communion table, everybody not only can, be present together, but we want to be, and we feel a sense of togetherness. So that was really the initial burden, problem that I was hoping to solve. What's ended up happening is I ended up doing a study with Indiana Wesleyan. I partnered with Katie Sneed up there. She's the director of the social work program. And it was a small exploratory study, but I wanted to know, as a social worker, is there something to this? Like, you can't, you're not supposed to make stuff up. You're not supposed to go, well, I'm a dreamer, I'm going to make up this relationship building approach. It's not supposed to go like that. So I wanted to know, let's kind of study this a little bit, at least an exploratory study. And one of the findings was that the application of the art of invitation has kind of a universal application. And I think that's because people are people. We all have these insider outsider feelings. We all have this need to belong, connect, and matter. I mean, that's part of like the attachment theory, the people that know that when you're born, that like how you have significance is from your early roots. And then, and how do we stay connected? So it's, in churches, most of the arguments, most of the conflict is not over theology. It's over so many other things. And yet we are so passionate. So that was really where it started. But as it's turned out, it's met a need for people that are recovering from addiction. I've piloted for 12 years in a treatment program at our community corrections facility with women who are recovering from methamphetamine and heroin and pretty significant substance use disorders. And these are people that really intentionally need to build new relationships. So I have shared my work there for a long time. And COVID lifting, I'm getting to go back. And so that is also, a student from Indiana Wesleyan used the material with a group up in Marion, Indiana, and he said it went really well. So I don't have a long track record with it, but I think if there are people that are looking for how it is that I can develop new relationships, how can I have some distance from some painful relationships, how can I mend some relationships, how do I build enduring, satisfying relationships and connected community? As an insider or an outsider, that's the problem I wanted to solve.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's a needed solution in our world and continues to be for forever. So you've got a good niche in here to do your work. I really appreciate it. As you have done this, as you started thinking about this on the screened-in porch, talking with Mark, and you started putting out feelers, talk to me about what happened for you. What happened inside you as you started to venture out? I mean, just beginning with writing your thoughts down What were some of the fears or the obstacles internally that you were wrestling with? And then to not only just write them down, but to send them to an all male seminary. My goodness, the courage you showed from your first step is absolutely amazing. What did you wrestle with as you did that?
I wrestled with the excitement of the possibility, and then the insecurity of my own self. I wrestle a lot of times with a lot of insecurity because I think, well, this surely can't be, this surely can't be. And so, but I'm kind of odd in that won't stop me. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I'm super insecure, but that is not going to stop me. So I have this way of being able to move through the insecurity to the next thing. I can tell you that, what were all those feelings? I mean, I had self-doubt, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew what I knew. So all I knew was, if God gave me this vision and this open door, that I would just walk through it until I couldn't walk through it anymore.
Mm.
I mean, if it came to the end, I was kind of okay with that, because I thought, okay, I'm just going to follow this and see where it goes, and to the best of my ability. And then if it stops, because I don't think that, this is part of art of invitation. So if you're trying to, communicate, because really this is a communication, right? I'm communicating with people about communicating.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are wanting to present your information, share an idea, or confront, which is just a difference of opinion. But if you want to present and confront without a context of a trusting relationship, like that the other person thinks that they're interested, or that there's some level of relationship, it's just not going to go anywhere.
Right.
So if I might have, this is 1 Corinthians 13. If I had all the knowledge and all the wisdom and I had all these things, but I didn't have this sense of caring about the people that I was working with, or being interested in like what they thought, or was this helpful, or, how does in all of that, then I think it would have been empty. So I was really okay with that. I wasn't, I remember when we did the study, and I thought, man, I wonder if the study results are going to be bad, that people are going to say this is not all that helpful. I mean, that was kind of a big deal. I'd put all this energy into it. And
Yep.
then, you're going to have the study. And I'm like, what if the results don't come out great? And I said, well, then so be it.
And how did they come out?
They came out well,
So, yeah, I mean, 95% of what we worry about doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I love what you said, that I I felt all this stuff. I feel the insecurity, but I move forward anyway. And I just kept saying, I'm going to walk through the door until the door doesn't allow me to walk through anymore. And you've just had one opportunity door open after another in this process, which is affirming to the fact that God did give this to you. I think the other thing we talk about in the Dream Accelerator, when people start maybe giving into fear, they give into their self-doubt, I try to encourage them to go back and think about their who. Think about the people that you initially thought about helping,
Mm-hmm.
and build some characters there, some avatars, if you will, or real people, real case studies of people you've helped, like the
Mm-hmm.
100 families you helped, that the 100 households that were represented in that study that you did. Um, think about your who, and that will get you back in the game. That will be the motivator. Not even the what you're doing is motivation as much as the who is a motivator. So who are the motivators for you? Who are the people that you think about
Mm.
when you're ready to quit, or you're saying, okay, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
Who is
So,
your who that doesn't let you quit?
yeah, I think the who's are so many of the people I've had conversation with over the years, I go back to that. And really because I've had so much, I piloted this for so long now. The who's became now the people that tell me like that their life is better because of learning some of these concepts and tools. And really it's really a way of looking at it. I mean, my work is an intersection of science, but it's really a spiritual practice. So that's what makes my work, I think, somewhat unique. I mean, there's so many self-help books and so many relationship books, and there's so many Bible studies. I don't know. There may be out there. I don't know of anybody else that has synthesized the science with the spiritual practices that are primarily Judeo-Christian. Like the second greatest command. So many people talk about love your neighbor as yourself, but how do they interweave? Like, what does that look like in communication style? How does that get lived out in communication style, especially when you're emotionally dysregulated and you're ready to knock somebody's block off? Then what? I mean, that happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Happens with me, I'm the author of the material, but I get to learn it every day.
Yeah, you do.
I'm not always great at it. And so in like the second thought, that's a spiritual practice. Pray without ceasing. Nobody's going to sit around and pray every day. I mean, maybe monks, but they have to eat and walk around too. And so, we're doing a podcast. Are we praying without ceasing? Well, see, I think that when you use the second thought, when you stop and think about God's will and his way as in terms of relationship, your first impulse to knock somebody's block off might be tapered a little bit. And you just learn a little bit over time how to embrace these ideas. And it kind of changes. It changes you, it changes others, it changes the environment. It's not always a quick fix, but it's a satisfying fix, it's satisfying.
Yeah. Because it connects us and helps us be truly human.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And I don't think that any of the things that are in Art of Invitation are particularly like rocket science or brilliant, but I do think that they're super practical and things that people can embrace and incorporate into their lives in their everyday journey. And so those are the who's, it's the people that have told me about like how this particular concept helped them or whatever. And, so there's a lot of who's out there that I would love to be able to share my work with. And so thank you for letting me be on your podcast, because maybe there's somebody out there that might be interested. And, so when you go back to what are some of my fears, I mean, man, technology today, this is a new world of sharing, right? And all this COVID, and you can't always have conversations like the ways that we might have done it even 5 years ago. So, I mean, there's a lot of new ways to figure out how you share what it is that you're doing. And so that's a fear, am I going to be able to do this? But again, it's like, well, I don't really have to worry about that today. So I'm not going to worry about that today.
Yeah, you will be given what you need when you need it.
Yeah. And that's what I found in this thing. There was one time I remember.
That's a great lesson, isn't it, for a dream pursuer? Is a lot of times when I'm working with the Dream Accelerator clients, they're thinking about the ultimate and wanting all of that to happen, and so they stress out about it. And I try to get them to just think about the next step.
Right.
Like, just what's the next step? This will take care of itself, but we'll never get here if you don't start moving. So start moving with the next step, and then you will be given what you need when you need it.
And really that encouragement, really, Jeff, that you're saying the encouragement, like, because sometimes you're in your own head, when you talk about fears, you're in your own head too much. So if you can get with someone who can encourage you or to give you a balanced perspective, that's really valuable. What you're doing is really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And so is what you're doing. I want to circle back, because you talk about the problem you're solving is giving tools to insiders and outsiders to help them connect in more meaningful, healthy ways. I have tried, and this is where I feel like a fish out of water. I've said this to my dad, who's a preacher, ever since I was ordained in the ministry. I said, I just feel like I'm a fish out of water. I don't belong here. I feel like an outsider in this particular denomination.
Mm-hmm.
And in our training that we did called Missional Leader, we actually used the phrase in our training that we need to, as followers of Jesus in the world, we need to choose to be outsiders.
Yeah.
And so I'm not negating what you're saying, am I? I'm what I'm saying by that is we have to take off that insider position that we think we have,
Right.
and we need to meet someone where they are at.
Right. So I would say that that I understand what you're saying, and I think what you're saying, the meat of it, we're probably on semantics of terms, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because if I want to join an engineering group at my local business, we live in Columbus, Cummins is big. If I say, hey, I want to join this engineering group over there, I'm probably not going to get in. I'm not an engineer. I don't work for Cummins. It's not my thing, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's normal for me to feel like an outsider. I
yes,
don't think whether you're the ordained pastor, I mean, this is my bias. I don't think whether they're ordained pastor or parishioner that anybody should feel like an outsider in the church, because this is also really interesting. Okay. So, what makes a person an insider? What makes a person an insider? It is the love of God that makes us the insider. It's always
right,
the love of God, whether we're the outsider to culture or the insider. But I think what you're talking about is the suffering. See, the suffering that we have sometimes in being an outsider. Sometimes when we feel outsider, we don't feel in the loop, or we're not in the place of privilege. There's a suffering there.
right. And what I'm saying is, as people who are followers of Jesus, who have been loved by God, we should we should have a better capacity to engage to engage the person who thinks they're an outsider,
Yeah.
and engage them where they're at, listen well,
Yeah.
love well. Instead, we wait for them to come in. We wait, and they
Right.
don't want to come in. And I'm trying to move everybody outside to engage a world that is needing what God has to offer. But we're all comfortable in our little bubble. We use our own language. We think, as an insider, we think we control the narrative. And when someone
Yeah.
else speaks a different opinion than our narrative, we get all up in arms, and we tend to protect what is ours instead
Right.
of
Right.
permeating the relationships and the neighborhoods and the culture where we live.
Well, and I think that's really really true. I think that the essence of my work is probably not as much like diagnosing, as much as just becoming more self-aware of ourselves and of others, and it naturally then happens.
Yeah,
It kind of naturally happens. We don't have to have this like game plan about how we approach the outside world, whether we're outsiders. I mean, it is important to have a sense of when I feel like an outsider or an insider. And as I shared with you before, we're moving into, my husband and I, into a transitional time of life where
yeah,
things are changing for us. And I just know, because I know myself, I know the environment, there's going to be a lot of outsider experiences that I'm going to have. And I'm
yes,
a true insider. It's so interesting, when you're married to a pastor, people just are sure that you're an insider. But I mean, look at studies of pastors' wives
yeah,
and talk to them. There's so many times that we feel on the outside or pressured or urgency. What I really believe is the strength of what I've discovered is kind of that matters as it helps us or doesn't help us connect to others. But at the end of the day, it's more about what naturally is in front of us and how we move into what we believe to be true. So what you're talking about is it's really important that we engage with everybody. insiders and outsiders. It's important that we engage with everybody. Let's not play favorites with the insiders. And where are we inside? See, let's not play favorites with the insiders. Let's figure out how we can be sensitive to what an outsider experience might be. And honestly, we all have clouded vision. So the Bible says what? That we see with dimly lit glasses.
Dimly lit eyes, yeah.
And see, this is the thing, I think, like we don't know what the outsider feels, because people don't even know I feel like an outsider, and there's no way to know who's feeling comfortable and connected. There's no way to know. But how do we sense how to care for one another? Well, we pay attention to who's there and who isn't. And if they're not there, why aren't they there? Is there some reason for that? Do we want to have a conversation? Do we care? There was one woman, you talk about the who. There was one woman that used to come to my group, and like these can cause me to cry. I was like getting teary before, but she passed away last year, and she didn't have a safe place hardly anywhere in the church. She always felt like the lower class citizen, but she loved coming to this one group. She just loved there, and she felt safe there and connected. And so it didn't matter that she didn't feel great with the whole church. She felt safe there. And if she talked about our church, she always talked about it in the most positive way.
Yeah.
She always talked about it there. And I miss her so much, because she kind of died in a sad way, because she was that who. She was somebody that was a who for me, somebody I knew, that I could live out what I knew, And so like last week, getting back at the community corrections, we only had one, but man, it was awesome. The one. We've had 12 or 15 sometimes. It was the one. Is that enough for me? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to, I say, Debbie, you're not Brene Brown, she's a social worker. She's hot out there. You're not Brene Brown.
You're not Brene Brown.
and that's okay. Brene, if you're listening to this, you're awesome. But
awesome. We appreciate you, Brene.
Right. But I mean, like, that's not my calling. And that's okay. Yes. But I'm here for where my calling is. And I believe so much that we all can feel connection. I just have this passion that the church can actually be a place where we like each other.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Wow. You're blowing my mind. Yes, let's work for that. That's a worthy dream.
Right. And we do a lot of times, right?
Yeah,
we do. I mean, it's a great space. It's the church is the vehicle to change the world.
Yeah. Jesus said, this is how people will know that you belong to me, by how much you love one another.
By how much you love one another. That's right.
So we have people like Debbie Tyke along the way that have discovered some things that will help us love each other a little better. And not just love each other in the insider, but love each other, whoever the other is that we're engaging with at the moment.
And, I guess I just want to say that, wait a minute, I had a really brilliant thought. Now I lost it.
Okay, wait.
Go on, move on, because it's gone.
It just went right by. Nuts. We missed it. Maybe it'll come back.
All right.
So you're a bulldog. I mean, when you latch onto something, you are not going to let go. You're going to keep going, even though you feel insecure. Your determination is inspiring to me.
Well, thank you.
You just keep going. How is that just a personality thing for you? So if someone's listening here and they go, well, I'm not like that. So who surrounds you? Where do you go to get the boost or the courage to keep walking through those open doors?
It's kind of a mystery to me, honestly. I don't have a really great answer to that, other than I would say that if you look at the forward to my book, there's about 25 people. I'm not afraid to ask for help. So if I ask for help from someone or I ask a question, I mean, this is part of being invitational, I think, is being able to receive as well as give. And like sometimes you don't want to show your insecurity. And I mean, I don't like to do that. It's so in my circles, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. When I'm in professional circles with my peers in that, and I have to say what I'm doing, it's really humiliating because I'm like, well, I'm not working for this place and I don't have this great position and I this and that. And so I've had to humbly say, I'm working on this relationship building approach that is an intersection of science and spirituality. And I believe in it. And I'm pretty sure I've been piling it for a long time that I know I have something, but it sounds very counterculture. And it is very counterculture. Yeah. And so, and if I'm in church circles, most of my church circles are male, and in our circles, they're, synodically trained. And so, I can kind of be a little bit of an outsider there too. But I'm not afraid to ask for help. And I'm not afraid to be transparent and honest about what it is and what it isn't. I'm, like if I have a default, it's talking too much. Can you tell, audience? I was afraid of that. I was like, slow it down, Debbie, and don't talk too much.
No, you're doing great.
Anyway, so I'm not afraid of that. That's helped me a lot. And, I really have a great husband not everybody has that, but if you don't have someone, but I have to tell you, Mark and I have not always been on the same page, because this was so counter culture in a way, and he lives in the environment, in the culture, in the church culture. So it's been one of these things that, like, you wonder, because sometimes there's an investment, it's like the income isn't what you want at a certain time, or the travel, or the income, I mean, there's a cost to doing this. There was a cost to developing it, and we had to talk about that over time, because I've been developing this for quite a while. Yeah. And so, but I can say right now that I'm kind of excited. I mean, I would like for us to be able to do like ministry retreats, because I just think there's so much need in ministry couples for like an authentic conversation about relationship, authentic sharing about relationship. And we did this. We went to a conference shortly before moving to Indiana years ago, and it was one of the best things we did. And so, I mean, there's potential. He tells me he's not committing to anything, so
Yeah, but maybe that'll be part of the transition.
Maybe
not.
Yeah.
Hold on loosely to exactly how that turns out, but keep walking through those open doors. I want to ask you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, like, how do I do that? It is a little bit of personality. My parents are like this. So I had, I had some examples of people that carved out from nothing. That's kind of the way my parents are. They have the ability to just kind of carve out from, some people follow a pattern. They want to read a book to follow a pattern. I really don't need to do that. That isn't part of who I am. So not everybody's going to have that. But I think that, but this calling of God, everybody's got a calling of God. Everybody has a calling of God. And whether they recognize
it or not. Yeah.
So whoever your listeners are today, whoever you are out there, what your calling is that you have been called by, you will be equipped by. And, obviously I like my material, but, in my material, there's this like seeking to understand, sharing openly and honestly, caring and receiving care. You got to find the balance of that, because if you are, if you're like all in your own head with your own ideas, you're not really seeking to understand what it is that people are looking for. Right. And if you're sharing openly and honestly without the context of the relationship, it's probably not going to go anywhere. And if you are trying to give of yourself without understanding your capacity, you're going to get dissipated. And if you are receiving too much and it's costing people too much and they don't want to hear your ask, then that's going to be a closed door. So it's a
Yep.
balance.
Yeah. So we have in our audience people that are thinking about their own ideas. They're thinking
Yeah.
about their own dream, and they're reticent. They're scared. They're wondering. They're having insecurity issues. What would you say to them today?
I would say that you're a whole person with all those insecurities, that insecurities are part of the human journey, and that does not make you a bad person. And try not to think in your head, I'm a good person or a bad person. I'm a good business person or I'm a bad person. Try to get that good, bad, right, wrong out of your head. That's so hard to do. We're always judging ourselves and we're always comparing ourselves against other people. Try really hard not to compare yourself to whatever standard that is out there, but look for that invitation to fulfill what it is that you're called to do and figure out what you need to get that accomplished, and try to give yourself grace to understand that, you're a human being with human needs, and so are the people around you. And how is it that you can get to know yourself better to be able to know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses lie, and then you work on the weaknesses and you move from the strengths and you join with others who have the same things, and you're going to make it.
I love it. I love it. I talk about in my book that fear not it's not so much a command. I always used to think it was a command.
Yeah. Yeah.
That God says, fear not. But then
Yeah.
when I writing the book, I discovered, I dove deep into that. And every time God says, fear not, it's attached to a promise. Fear not, I am with you. Fear not, you're not alone. Fear not, I am your God, whatever the promise is.
I love that.
And so I love the art of invitation, because fear is a natural part of the entrepreneurial process and the dream pursuit. And when he says, fear not, it's an invitation.
Yes. And it's a calming, right? It's like, fear not, like calm down because I've got this. I love that. I love that connection.
Yeah, I think a lot of things in scripture that we think are commands are more of an invitation to just trust and to realize that he's got it. And so it's an invitation. You are being invited, if you're listening to this, and you're listening to a number of these, and you're listening to these guests, and you're going, I got this idea, I really want to go for it. But I just say, listen to the invitation.
And
you're being invited into a grand adventure to learn, to grow, to discover, to share what you've been given to make the world a better place. And it is an art form.
It is.
That's why you call it the art of invitation. It's an art. It takes practice, and you don't become an artist overnight. You have to get the canvas out, and you have to make some brush strokes, or get the keyboard out and make some music. In terms of what you're doing, you have to get out and have some conversations and learn from that, and have a wise teacher like Debbie Tyke to help you learn some skills that maybe you've never been taught. And it's okay. It's okay that you've never been taught it, but let's learn it now. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Thank you for who you are, and for taking the risk and making the investment. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen as you keep expanding the art of invitation.
Well, thank you so much.
Before we hang up here, I want to give you the last word, and I want you to tell the audience where they can find out more about the art of invitation and more about what Debbie Tyke is up to.
Well, thank you for that. So I have a website, and it is www.artofinvitation.org. And also on that, then are links to videos. So the pathway to learn the art of invitation is very simple, and you actually can do it by yourself. You don't need a coach. You don't need a teacher. I am available for support if, say, for example, you want to try to develop this in a church setting or a retreat or a conference, or you would like to try to pilot this yourself with people, maybe you have access to a jail ministry and you would like to use the art of invitation in a jail ministry, or anything. I've thought about we have a neighboring church that has a lot of people that come to learn second language, and they're always wanting to know about how to interact with the culture. I think it would be great for that. There's so many applications of this. Anywhere where you think people want to work on their people skills, and it's kind of fun. I'm going to say it's a fun, light thing to do. There's a lot of it's not intense. Okay. So the videos, there's a set of videos on the website. You'll look under the tab, it'll say videos, and there are 8 chapters. That seems long, but each of the chapters are pretty short. The videos are only 2 or 3 minutes apiece. And so what you do is you get a guidebook. They're available on Amazon, or you can, if you want bulk numbers, try to get a hold of me. And on the website is a contact form. Or Debbie@artofinvitation.org also is my email address. And so what you do is you will watch a video, and then there's a workbook page that goes with it. And so there are 4 days per week. I think churches that want to do this during Lent, it could be a Lenten exercise. There's so many applications. So anyway, you can do it on your own. You don't have to do it with a group. Form your own group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Debbie, just amazing that we talked about this years ago when it was still kind of taking form in your head and your heart, and to see what you've done so far is amazing, and nothing but the best for you and Mark in this transition time and in your work, Art of Invitation. Thank you again today for joining us. One last word. What do you want to share as we go out on the podcast?
I want to say thank you, Jeff Meyer. You're awesome. I appreciate your program. Just the people that you're having on, the ideas that you're generating, the encouragement that you're giving for people like me. And so it's a real blessing to be here. And I just thank you.
Awesome. I look forward to our online happy hour. Getting that on the calendar. Until then, you have a great day. All right.
All right. Blessings to you,
Bye-bye.
my friend. Bye-bye.
Hey, fellow dreamer. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Head over to my website, jeffmeyer.org, for all of the show notes and links. And when you're ready to move from overthinking about your dream to actually taking action on it, consider joining the Dream Accelerator community. Our clients are getting crystal clear on their dream with our Dream Generator Vivid Description 5-step process. They're discovering the truth about fear and how to use it as fuel to take courageous steps in the right direction. And most importantly, they are walking a clear path forward because they have made an investment in themselves to confidently realize their dreams. The results are so inspiring. Having coaching and companions on the dream journey is crucial. Remember, fear will come, fear will stay. Move forward anyway.